Okay, so we've got to try and do a little work around here. Try and clean that up a bit. That's difficult. What I'm trying to do there is not so easy. That's difficult. And then we'll flip over and we'll go to the second side.
Is it easier to clean up crossover, moving to a smoother belt and cleaning that later? So you're polishing it while you're cleaning it?
I do not believe in removing materials when polishing. I believe in removing scratches when polishing. Okay, removing the previous grit, and that is all if I can help it. I'll tell you now that up in this corner, I will end up doing some hand turning. I'll never get that just running on the corner.
What is your grit progression normally?
I was going to go there a little later. Can we?
Okay. I'm jumping ahead of you. Go ahead.
You're jumping ahead of me. I was going to go. Whoa. Okay. Now there'll definitely be a little bit of work that I need to do in that corner. Let's flip over to the other side and do the same thing. One last little bit on this side. See how nice, despite the fact that we're running at really low speed, how quickly we are able to remove material, and how vibration, see how much more control you have on this slow wheel. All right, other side. So we're repeating step 1 on the opposite side now.
No, I got
Okay. There we are. Now you see where the two grinds intersect, and this tip is going to taper from there to the point. So you have a very steep, defined spine down the end. You almost have, certainly have a point that, since everybody goes forged in fire these days, that you would be able to go through chainmail with a point like this. Okay. So now we're going to go in here, remove the rest of that material, and hey presto, we finished one part of this leg.
Oh, for it. He's going to Learning high speed and dress a belt. My favorite way to make a grab. I'm good at that. I don't think he does that
How many of you guys have ground almost no blades, and how many have ground lots of blades? Lots of blades.
Not a lot.
Not lots. One of the things that I see most people, or a lot of people, when they first start grinding, they hold on to the knife too tightly, particularly when they approach the wheel. I mean, I'm barely holding this thing so that it automatically locates itself against the wheel. If you hold it tight when you're coming up to the wheel, that's the way it's going to grind. So let it be nice and floppy. Tighten up your grip a little bit as you get into it. Okay. I think that's about where we need to go to finish this basic demo.
Okay.
You can see that there's going to be some more work in that Ricasso area where it flares out. I'll have to be, but there's no point in me sitting here fiddling with that at this point in time. But you'll see how close I've got to the center line without going over the center line. You'll see where those two grinds meet one another, the two angles meet one another. Now on this knife, I have decided that I'm going to leave that like that. It's a stainless steel blade. I'm going to polish those two facets or those two angles separately and leave that very distinct line between the two because it looks great and people look at me, whoa, you know. But if you want to blend it, that's fine. You just start at the tip and roll it through that junction between the two, and you remove the junction, and that's it, gone. In one, almost in one pass, that will be gone. And so now we come to the rest of it. Easy, rinse and repeat. Finished. Okay. On the other side, and try and match. And that's where, again, that's why you have lines on there. And you can see I'm not precisely on the lines, but it's given me a good idea of where I wanted to go, and particularly in that back area. If I'd made it a tighter curve, it would have been a lot easier. But I thought that was. Well, you can see on this one. This was a 1.5, 1.25 inch. This was a very, yeah, not an easy one to grind, particularly on the top side because there's an inside curve there. But yeah, but mainly for all marketing else, that's what I use.
Still 1 inch wheels? Get down to really small wheels?
Still 1 inch wheels. Beta makes that. That's maybe just because I had them. Beta makes those The 1-inch wheels with with the overhang. Yeah, the screw-in one that overhangs. Yeah. I know Travis's machines all have the 2-inch wide one that sits in the fork.
I thought they went away from the 1-inch.
Have they?
I haven't seen any in a while. Since they came up with the Beta 3s and the 4s.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. All right. Belt progression.
Yes, sir.
I can. Yeah, this is a fairly neat belt setup. I can remember what mine looked like when I first started, and we had piles of different sizes and different belts. And honestly, my shop runs on 3 belts, and I don't like getting confused with all these different grits. Mainly the reason I make a big jump from either 80 or 60. Those are the only 2 that I don't go coarser than that. I used to use 36s. I don't. I use 80s or 60s. I find them more efficient, and I jumped right from there to a. Is it an? I've got to think of the name because we had different names for things in South Africa, and my mind tends to go back to those. 845 Apex. You call them Apex? What do you guys call these?
J-Flex?
J-Flex?
Well,
Yeah, that's just because it's flexible.
no. Well,
This is a Northern belt, but okay,
I don't know.
an A40 in these,
Okay.
which is equivalent, I think, to about 400. Yeah. I jump straight, and I use the ones that are slightly more flexible, have a softer back than this.
Okay.
I've never seen one of those. Like these right here?
No, not those. Structured abrasion. So I jump straight from 60 or 80 to 400. And the reason I do that, and I don't go through a whole lot of steps, is because I cannot see the difference between 120 grit scratch and an 80 grit scratch. To me, they look the same. So if I go over it with 120 grit, I do not know that I removed all the 80 grit scratches. If I jump all the way up to 400, then I can see, yes. So I would rather spend, instead of going through 3 different stages and spending, and then realizing, oh crap, I still got an 80 grit scratch back there, I would rather go directly to 400 and spend a lot of time with that and make sure that all those 80 grit scratches are gone. So that's the way I go, and from an A40 I jump straight to a 40 micron diamond belt. Those are available from Pop's Knife Making Supplies. They are 3M's belts. They're expensive, but they last an awful long time. I think one 2-inch 40 micron is probably about 30 or 40 bucks. It's very expensive. I split them myself. Do I? No, I don't split those myself. I get them split, and they last a long time. In the last 5 years, I've probably used about 4. And I run water on them. And remember, I'm grinding hard and polishing hard. I'm not polishing in the soft. It doesn't particularly like soft. And from that 40 micron diamond belt, I can go straight to 1200 grit water paper and clean up, and then go higher than that and mirror polish and then etch. Because I don't really work in stainless. Okay, does that answer that question for you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Right, what else do you want to ask?
Split 2 belts. You have a belt splitter?
No. I don't like them particularly. I need to make myself a new one. The early ones that I had were just they were machined out of aluminum, and they had a belt, a blade sticking up in the middle. You could either do it 1 3/4 or put the blade in the middle. But the problem is the belt wears the corners of the little channel that sits in, and pretty soon you're no longer accurate. So, how do I describe this? I have a piece of wood about yay long. I set up a steel fence on that. It's screwed down into the piece of wood. I put the belt up against that. I put a 1-inch piece of steel across, face down. Turn it inside out, put it face down. Take a 1-inch wide steel bar, put it up against the fence, clamp it on with 2G clamps, and take the box cutter and slice. Rotate the belt and slice.
Very sophisticated.
You must excuse me, guys. I make intricate little knives. I can spend a month working on a knife, so I don't make all that many. So I don't spend all that, I'm not modifying hundreds of belts. If you're modifying lots and lots of belts, you get bored of that pretty soon, and maybe make a belt splitter with some tungsten carbide guides in it so that they don't break. That is always my intention, but never got there. Okay. So that's it. We got questions about grinding. Grinding is practice. You want to do this, you practice and you grind and you grind and you grind and you grind, and you get there next. And I really believe that very strongly in those guidelines. Put lines on your stuff. Try and hit those marks. Try and get as close as you can to those marks. Doesn't matter if you don't achieve it the first time. It's a guideline. Keep going. Keep going for that precision. And in the end you get there and you make a much better product. All right, since Jim has, yes. Absolutely. Hey man, I should put some more lines on that later. I did a demo at Travis's where somebody challenged me with exactly that. Can you do that with a flat grind? And I did the first half of the knife on with a hollow grind, and I turned around and I did a flat grind. So I use exactly the same approach as this. Yep. So since Jim has given me 3 hours, I can't absorb 3 hours. I'll tell you what else I do. And if you will be super careful, gentlemen, really careful, please. I'll pass this around, and what I do mainly, and you are welcome to. If I give it to you like this, it's more less likely to be dropped. How's that? I'll give it to you like that. Hold on, don't mind. Don't drop it. Okay.
You're a brave man. You've got a very big wallet.
Yeah.
So, on your daggers, what is the minimum thickness of steel that you would use? And you may have talked about this at the beginning, I didn't hear.
No. You've got to fit your wheel diameter to your blade thickness, really. I can remember when I first ground one of those, I ground it on a 3/4 inch wheel because I had some, and I thought, oh man, that's going to be super accentuated. And actually, I ground and ground and ground, and it was looking fantastic, and all of a sudden the edge fell off because I ground through halfway up the grind.
You meant,
okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. So match it. I mean, I grind little folding knife blades that are 2.5 millimeters thick. Yep.
Okay.
10 inch is a great universal.
Okay.
Yep.
That's the answer. We probably covered this in the beginning. We came in a little late. What is the purpose of doing a 1-inch as opposed to a 2-inch?
Lots of things. Firstly, it's way more. I'm going to tell you what I was told right in the beginning from Dan Bader from Bader Grinders in 1982. He said to me, cut your wheel down to 1 inch because you use the corners of the wheel when you grind. If you notice, when I was grinding, I tend to go from one side to the other side to the other side and back and forth, and I'm using the corners of the wheel. On a 2-inch wheel, you leave a lot in the middle that you never use. Okay, that was his rationale. And when I started with that, it proved to be true, but I've added a whole lot of other things to that. Firstly, I use the description of driving a long wheelbase vehicle around a really tight hairpin bend versus a little itty bitty short Jeep. And if you're doing inside curves, say you're doing a crisp that is like this, you will not do it with a wide wheel. Thirdly, if you're doing little folding knives, you can hold on to the tip of the blade for a lot longer and you can get some movement across the wheel, and it's that movement that gives you a nice clean plane in your blade. Fourthly, the 2-inch dip. Do you know about 2-inch dips?
Oh my goodness.
Belt bite.
Belt bite. What do you call it?
Appreciate you doing that.
I don't know. I know, but
I wasn't gonna touch it.
It's
where
worth
the,
it more than me, so I'm not.
My wife's saying
you take the hand off. There you go.
coming back there. Okay, thanks guys.
Good job.
Can I get in trouble with that? Sure.
I'll pull it, but that is something else.
Is that for the art invitational this year?
I sold one of these at AKI this year, and then I made another, and then everybody wanted one. So I had to make another 3, and then I took the motivated course. Doing actually the blade and everything is all fine. I do that, but those square inlays, but no horn. That's another whole gig.
Oh, gig, I bet it is. I love the way you did this. I've never seen this before.
Yeah, that looks like you just wanted to beat your head against the wall for no reason on that one.
Yeah, did you see that?
Yeah.
How you did that? That's insane.
Is that a common thing for you to do there?
Man, listen, that blade I made in, I don't know, 1985 or 86.
Well, the
and-
back bolster.
Yeah, but I don't do fixed blades. I make holders. So is it common? No, it's not common, but okay, there it is. This is in the days of solder. When we still soldered. Today I would fit that perfectly. In those days we still filled the gap with soft solder.
Oh, wow. How did you clean this up? It all looks like it's one piece.
And that one's been dinged quite a bit because it's been lying around and taking demos. And sorry, I needed to finish off the 2-inch dip with a 2-inch wheel. You have a tendency when you're looking at this, you tend to bang the knife at the other corner and you get a little dip there. When you have a 1-inch wheel, it's much easier to keep both corners of the wheel in your vision and in your mind at the same time. So, go home, put your wheel in a lathe, cut it down, and you'll never regret it.
You gave me permission. I'm going to do it.
When I did it, when I did that demo.
We all know.
I gotta get my phone.
And done a number of kitchen knives. And they've been on some 2-inch ones.
I'm putting my hat. I'm thinking of buying a 71-inch belt line.
There is a little bit of a tendency, I think, on a 1-inch wide belt. On a plate. Because you've got such a